and I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Trista Carter. I am a regional stewardship manager here with California Forward, and I have my colleague here, David. And we'll just go ahead and thank you again, Jesse, with OCBC for having us facilitate today. So we're excited for this HRTC meeting. Oh, nice. Thank you. And there is some language access steps if you need translation. It will show it at the bottom of your screen where it shows closed captions, and you can select your language. If you need Spanish, Tagalog, or any other language, you have that option at the bottom. Good morning.
Patricia, I think we can go ahead and get started, and I'll keep letting people in from attendee to panelist view.
Okay, perfect. All right, and so I want to give the opportunity for anyone to give any public comments. Anyone not from the HRTC that's not a part of that, go ahead. If you have any comments, you may raise your hand or drop it in the comments in the chat. Okay, by me not seeing any, we'll move on. Any HRTC member comments, any brief comments or announcements for HRTC members on any programs, activities, or events that are surf related, and or to provide an update on the work that you're doing to build the high road economy?
Well, I'll jump in real quick. We are hosting our STEAM Ahead Summit 2. We have consolidated or in the process of consolidating all the STEM and STEAM related resources and hosting it on a special Octane set of web pages. And we're meeting on September 29 at Medtronics. If you're interested, just drop me an email at linda@octaneoc.org or follow us on LinkedIn. We posted it there, or you can go to our website, octaneoc.org. And please register, because anybody involved, all of my friends with surf, will find this to be useful.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for sharing, Linda. Anyone else that would like to share any activities or any updates?
Hi, Trista. This is Yosefa Alafaituli with CLO. I'm sorry I'm off camera. I'm coming back from school drop-off. But I wanted to share for CLO, last year we started our first annual event. And so in 2 weeks, on September 21st, we are having our second annual CLO night market. And at our night market, we'll be featuring about 25 of our clients who have very varying products and services, as well as food tastings. And so it's really a night of celebration of entrepreneurship in Orange County, bringing together 200 plus folks in Costa Mesa to showcase and recognize the power of entrepreneurship, particularly at the neighborhood level of disinvested communities. So I'll pop the link into the chat once I get to my computer, but thanks for letting me plug it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing with us.
I'll throw out one there too. This is Taryn Palumbo with Orange County Grantmakers. Just a quick note to say we have our summit coming up on October 5th. It is a community-wide celebration of equity. So we hope that every single person who's involved with surf is able to join us, because it's really applicable for nonprofits, business, community leaders, activists. So I just put the link in the chat and you are all welcome.
Amazing. Thank you. This is great information. Thank you.
This is Austin Lynch from Unite Here, Local 11. And I'll just add that our members have been on strike. We've been on, we've done rolling waves of strikes. I think there's been about 80 strikes or more so far. And I'm very proud of our members. They've been doing fantastic work on the picket line, and we're very confident that we're going to achieve an agreement that substantially raises wages and pensions across the hotel industry for Orange County and LA County. So we're very, very excited about that. We're also campaigning. We have the chance to pass Measure A in Anaheim in just a few weeks, which would raise wages for the whole hotel industry, as well as provide basic safety against sexual assault for housekeepers.
Thank you. Also, this is great news and a great update across the board for workforce and labor. So thank you for sharing that. I see Anna's hand up, and then Gary will pop over to you, okay?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. That's really exciting news for the hotel industry and workers, and thank you all for that hard and long and amazing fight. And I'm excited about a lot of the events, so I wanted to share one more. Also, we're celebrating the graduation of folks working on their cooperative business as workers who are owners of their business, and they will be graduating on October 16th from a 12-week curriculum. And we have a fundraiser for starting capital funds for them and an event that we'll also put in the chat to invite you all in October. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Gary. I see you're off mute, but we're not getting any audio, Gary. I don't know if we're having some technical difficulties, but we can come back if needed. Okay, anyone else that have anything else? Oh, I have our CEO, Ish Herrera with California Forward. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ish.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Trista, for facilitating today's HRTC meeting. Since we're all putting plugs out there for events, I want to issue a warm, cordial invitation to all of you to join us for our 12th annual California Economic Summit, which is taking place in the Coachella Valley with the focus on both the Coachella and Imperial Valleys this year. We continue to have this event in inland parts of California, and this year we'll be in Indian Wells, and our event will take place from October 11th through October 13th. We have a great program that is coming together that we're very excited about, very timely topics and discussions at a statewide level with implications on the work that you're all doing with the HRTC in Orange County. In fact, we have a couple of sessions that are specific to the the SURF topic on the plenary stage and in the working sessions. So looks like Trista has just dropped that information. One of the things we try to do is remove barriers for participation to our event every year. So if we can help facilitate registration, we have a process to meet you where you are. That includes community members, CBOs, and any others who would like to attend. We pride ourselves on not letting cost be a barrier. So please reach out and we'll try to accommodate your participation. Just wanted to invite you all, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Awesome. And we have some wonderful tours for that region as well. So make sure you sign up for some of those. Okay, awesome. Anyone else? Any final comments before we move on?
I have one last thing. Well, maybe not last thing, but at OCAPCA, our small business program is holding a fundamentals of e-commerce for small businesses on September 19th, but it's going to be in Korean. So I'll drop the link in the chat, and if anybody wants to invite anybody who speaks Korean who's looking to start a small business, please shoot them that way.
Awesome, perfect. And then maybe I can pick up a few words in Korean that day. Awesome. All right. Anything else? All right. Seeing none, I will go ahead and hand this off to Jesse to review and discuss the Surf Catalyst Fund SFP and any updates in that area.
Yeah, and just before I get to that though, everyone, I'll circle back because I think all of you, you've probably received kind of the SURF HRTC hub that we've launched. We'll do it semi-regularly, and we want events to include. So I think that's another way that we can make sure everyone is aware of what everyone's doing and try to build greater cohesion and cross collaboration. So just I'll circle back on that because one's supposed to go out next week. So we want to make sure we actually have all the events that has been discussed and shared today. Let me go ahead and present you here. So this is, as we move on to the next item, it's loading. This is not the full SFP, and this is an update. However, considering the significance of it, we want to make sure that everyone is as up to date as possible. And I think though that since this is the final framework, this is a good way to get people's thoughts and feedbacks as we embark upon, drafting the 8 pages and whatever other documentation the state wants when it comes to Orange County receiving our full allotment of 14 million. So here's the final framework. As soon as the final SFP, which would be even more detailed on exactly what needs to be delivered to the state to receive the funds, come out, of course we'll share that and discuss that further. But I think as a final framework, we know that these guidelines are not going to modify much. So the big picture is there. And so the funding is now 14 million. Previously, when we just had this conversation, it was 26.5. So the state agencies have reduced the amount each region will be getting in this phase. So that money goes back to that original implementation pot, which is going to be more open, which would be more open-ended. And that SFP is not out, so we don't know exactly what's going to be in there. But here is the breakdown. And again, these are all no more than. So the breakdown will go to the regional convener so we can have staffing. To be honest, at this point now, because it's going to be multiple year, there probably will be staff specifically dedicated. So not myself, because I have other responsibilities, but at least one person who's 100% committed to moving SURF forward, as well as making sure that we can maintain the HRTC for people's times and efforts, as well as outreach and engagement for the community. So as we start thinking about the projects that might come up for pre-development, that there is community buy-in, and we're doing the same outreach that we're doing through this process is maintained to make sure, again, that there's community buy-in. There's money, 1.5 million to select sector investment coordinators. So at some point, and I'll probably get to this later, right, we will have to select our sectors of priority for these pre-development funds, and that these people will help coordinate a bunch. There's actually probably more information, but their job is to help identify the projects and bring it to the HRTC ultimately for us to decide on which projects we want to fund within that sector. The bulk of it, as it should be, is for pre-development dollars. I have a slide that explains more, but primarily it's exploratory, which is maybe a few steps of the process, or maybe it's primarily an idea. And then there's funding to move it along to kind of make it, again, ready to go. Or there's last mile, which means like a lot of the work has been done, 90% of it, maybe 95%. It's just missing that final piece for this to be, again, a ready to go project in order to receive not only SURF funding, which it can. So you could receive pre-development dollars, receive funding in order to be ready to go, and then receive implementation funding. But of course, be ready to go for all other sorts of funding, whether it be state, philanthropic, or federal. Then there's 1.5 million will go to the fiscal agent in order to have the staff necessary to comply with the grant and be in case of an audit. We will not get the fund. We will submit the proposal anytime before the end of November. But due to the time it just takes a contract with EDD, those funds won't be available until about May. And the point is to provide funding that overlaps with this current planning process that we're going to, so there isn't a disconnect between, so I guess there's a more seamless or a clean transition between the planning into the work that needs to be done to identify pre-development projects. I think I've already explained that bullet for the next bullet point. One thing that is important, of course, is the HRTC is the main decision maker here. That must be maintained, and we must be a diverse and inclusive group. So that's not going away when we talk about the $9 million here. And that the expenditures, it must align with strategy and priorities. I remember on the last call, Luis asked, how are these things connected? Well, now I think the state has made it even more connected, because as we develop strategies, which is a different part of the grant that we're working on now in this planning stuff, that there needs to be alignment and focuses. So you can't say Catalyst program dollars go to a whole nother set of priorities. while the work that we're doing here through planning and implementation will be another set of priorities. So those are kind of the major components. You have that, I think, 6-page document, but I wanted to distill it down just to make sure everyone kind of has a baseline here. I kind of broke down a little bit more. This is straight from the document, but these are all the things when we think about how the 9 million can be spent. It's on this, although they even acknowledge this may not be inclusive of stuff. You know, I would say bullet point that where it starts with feasibility study and the basic environmental infrastructure pre-development. That stuff is very like a physical project oriented type work. So think of it in that sense. But while bullet number 3 could be that, you know, we have physical space and we have people who are doing work as it relates to SURF already, but there needs to be just a little bit more staffing, a little bit more capacity building, someone to be a liaison between certain institutions in order to kind of strengthen the project. So you see that there. So I think that the idea that this has to be some sort of physical building is not the case, although I'm sure some of those will be. That there can be, again, a lot of you are doing great things I've already mentioned, but you need a person on your staff or another organization staff to be the coordinator, facilitator, to be able to bring the people who won't need to access the program, to bring the people who would train them for that program or whatever the service may be. That's kind of what you see in kind of that final bullet point in pre-development dollars. I also want to highlight again the sector investment coordinators. We will at some point have to have a job posting. I don't think it's going to be for this submission of the grant, but there needs to be a job posting at some point. Once the money is there, we'll have to develop a process to select and hire these people. But here are the primary goals and tasks. And so again, they're going to be bringing the projects or supporting the HRTC and identifying projects for consideration. They want to try to be able to find other funding outside of SURF, and they'll work with the state reps. GoBiz again has one in Orange County. We have to align it with HRTC identified projects and then liaison with a lot of stakeholders to make these as successful as possible. I highlighted the red one. It says that regions do not need to identify the industry clusters. So that's true for submission. However, I think that the question should go to this HRTC. And I think personally, as someone who sits with kind of SURF and thinks about it a lot and has to work through it a lot, that I don't think we should delay the selection of industry clusters much longer. We probably should select it primarily because if we know what the industry clusters are, then I think when you think about the investment coordinators, you would hope that they have some experience in the industry. So they probably have to have some grant writing skills, particularly when it comes to the state agencies that might have more funding to do. When you think about liaisoning with workforce economic development partners and other partners, it would really help if they already had some experience with those partners and what they did, and they're not starting from scratch. So as you can see, there's probably a variety of skills here, but if we don't select the industry sectors, I think we run the risk of not necessarily selecting the right person. And so even though it's not necessary, I think I want to bring it up to the HRTC to determine when all of you think is the right time to select industry sectors, whether that needs to be selected before we submit the proposal, which is by the end of November, or whether so long as we select it by May, and that way we know that way we can include it in the job descriptions and we can get a sense of people with experience in certain industry sectors. So that's one thing, although the state says it's not necessary, it doesn't mean we can't. And my recommendation is we do, but that question will be posed to all of you today. But then with that, let me take it down, just general thoughts, comments, and questions. I'll answer what I know. I think it's going to be helpful when we have the full SFP, but then I can also take all these questions down and get them over to the state in order to get them answered as soon as possible. And I know a rep from the state is here. Maybe she'll be able to answer directly. If not, again, you can just, she can circle back with her colleagues and we can get those answered as we continue to think through how we're gonna draw this money down.
Hey, Jesse, Jasmine from CLAOC.
Sure.
I just have I'm just trying to understand the process of this.
Mhm.
So, I guess what is our role or anyone on this call's role in terms of applying for the funding? Is it that you as a central team will get the funding and then we'll submit applications to you, or we submit like one thing on behalf of Orange County to say, here's the 5 or 10 different projects that will be funded by this?
Yeah, so I would say from all my conversation that it's not as if we need the projects by November. So I think that the state has to make this competitive, put that in quotes, by statute. And so I don't think it's if we're going to need to know how we're going to, particularly around the 9 million, how that's going to need to get dispensed line by line. And so when the funding is available, we have to go through the process with the industry coordinators and then back to the HRTC on which projects we will want to fund with that 9 million. So this is, yeah, I know it can kind of get confusing here, but it's not as if by November, we're going to select how we're going to spend that $9 million in pre-development. It's just to secure the money, and then we will embark upon that process between May of next year and September of 2026 on how that money gets spent. Yeah, so I think primarily though, of course, like all of you, you will see the document that gets submitted to the state on how we want to get that $14 million, and then we will work on the process of exactly which projects will get funding.
Great, thank you.
That's it. I know Tony has a question, but she could also, is so knowledgeable about this stuff, she could just also elaborate, I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think I have to. I don't have to correct you. I think you're doing a great job. I actually had a question, and I don't think we know it, but maybe we do. When you're using public money, there's always this kind of piece where you don't actually hand out the first, if you're doing first dollars, you don't hand out first dollars till you have last dollars. And so that can make pre-development activities challenging because of our deadlines. So I'm just hoping that when we see the solicitation, that it's clear that, particularly if you're going to do something physical, that you don't have to show total project costs. But then, of course, there's the challenge that what if it doesn't happen? There's also a lot of times the state will want to know, how do you demonstrate that it's ongoing? I think we've all run into that in grant applications, but in this case, we're trying to do seed, in which case, in areas that we may not know that last part. So I'm just hoping that when we see the solicitation, that we've got a task that we can clearly do within the timeline, and the acknowledgement of the risk that could be there for the overall project that we're leading into. And I don't know if anyone has more guidance already from the state on that.
I do not. But again, I saw, and again, the state might be working out some things. So Christy, I'm going to just have you allow to talk in case there is anything from the GoBiz or the state perspective that you're more aware of than I am.
Yeah, so this
Gloria, and then I'll, yeah, so Christy, go ahead, and then I'll go to Gloria, and then I'll answer the questions in the chat. But Christy, do you have any kind of comments of anything heard so far, or anything that's been explained or described?
Yeah, so this is a really great question that I can definitely circle back on. It's definitely an EDD question when it comes to anything that has to do with money. So I think we can definitely circle back on it.
Gloria?
Hi, Jesse. So one of the biggest things for me, I think you asked the question, do we need to start working on clusters? And the answer is yes, because I think once the clusters are defined, it'll be easier to put together projects that actually include training, and then not only training, but placement and then follow-up. It's the only way I can see it functioning, especially if we're going to go after additional funding outside of SURF. So my opinion, we need to start working in those clusters as soon as possible.
Thank you. Anna.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to point out some of the language that stood out to me that I think is important context to reiterate. I put it in the chat, but it's also, I found that not a lot of our current SURF information or even outreach material stress this enough, but just as a kind of reminder, what stands out to me is these projects are to build a more equitable, resilient economy, putting workers and communities at the center, and just that disinvested communities are the ones that are typically are unable to, reach these dollars because they don't have the same access to the capital. So I just wanted to, remind and reiterate that. And also to somebody's question, I like a lot of the questions in the chat. And somebody's questions is what are some examples of the types of projects? And we've been in conversation with Jesse about sharing with the group the EDD pilot project that Cooperación Santana and Thrive Santana have received along with other partners. And it is an example. We talk about, the deep community engagement.
So it's like we lost Anna there.
Yeah.
Did
Jesse,
you see if is Luis, because she brought up the project? I'm wondering if he is on. He's also involved with the project that she was referencing before she dropped off. But I don't see Luis. Okay, so we'll wait. If Anna comes back on, Trista, can you just have her?
Yeah, she's coming back in now. I think.
Okay.
Yep, she's in.
Sorry about that.
Right.
My computer died, but yeah, I'm just to say that I forget when we're trying to schedule to share more, but just some brief things that are included in our project is that there is deep community engagement, like a long history and a lot of participation from neighboring communities in the project. There was already like sufficient support from the city of Santana. There was language in the general plan and in the some of the specific plans about our organizations being resources, and there was, like Gloria mentioned, like workforce development and training and placement, and a number of things that we're happy to share more about as an example.
So yeah, and I mean, we kind of had you scheduled to present more detail around December because from what we do know, at least the implementation SFP will be very much based on the SFP that awarded you your project. And so we thought it would be a good time that before we get into the conversation about implementation projects, that yours is a clear example for us to think through. We can, if people would prefer, if we can move that up. But the reason why we didn't originally was because I think, again, yours was a good example for implementation funding, not necessarily pre-development, but of course you could talk about the pieces in between where pre-development funds were needed. So if people have questions or comments to that, they're welcome. If you want to email me after or send them in the chat, that's totally fine. But that's kind of what we had scheduled, because it would be like the last thing that we heard before we embarked upon the project solicitation and evaluation and the selecting of projects. So we just want to make sure it was fresh in people's mind and not present, 2 weeks from now and then have it be 4 months until we went through that process. Because then it'd be like, remind me again about Ana and Luisa's project. So that's kind of why the timing was sequenced the way it was. But if people feel like they want it earlier, we could do that as well if you feel like it kind of helps. But Donna, again, I would say we could wait for the final SFP. It was somewhat in that slide, although to be honest, I think the language is very technical. And it was kind of discussed, I think maybe the state is working on not making it so technical or allowing us with the funding to have a consultant explain these very technical things that just sound very, planning based. But I think that there's just a lot of options. I guess I don't have an answer other than the examples that were kind of on that PowerPoint slide. And I can make sure that you have that deck, and I tried to send it out earlier. Yes, Annie.
So my question is on the timeline. I know it's probably somewhere in a lot of the PowerPoints. So when will the Catalyst funding be distributed, and when will the implementation funding be distributed? Because if projects can be applied for both funding, I'm just wondering, the organizations would have to spend the money for the Catalyst funding and then be ready to be eligible for the implementation funding.
Yes. So Christy, you have your hand up.
Oh, I was going to also add that the state will add some criteria into some documents. Let's see, I had my notes up. So basically, we should have some project readiness criteria already involved in some document as the it either will become before the SFP or during the SFP.
Got it. Then Annie, to your question, we should be receiving funds to start this work in May of next year, and that the funds for implementation wouldn't be available really until July. However, if you just think about the general contracting, July of next year, but if you think about the general contracting process, it has to be later than that. Right? Like if we have to submit our plans by the end of June, our plans, which would then include implementation projects, there would need to be the timeline between us submitting the projects, the state selecting them, and then them contracting to get those projects done. The state says that the funds could be as early as July of next year. However, I just don't see how that is possible unless they knew the projects in at least 6 months prior to that, which, we're not, and we're probably ahead of any other region, to be honest, in the state. We're nowhere near ready to select those things because we have to do strategies first.
Okay, so
but ultimately, so the last piece is that they all have to be spent by the end of September 2024. So that's where, I guess if you think about it, you could receive implementation funding, the back end of 2026. Sorry, I said the wrong year, of September 2026. So you could have to receive money on the later end of 2024, done some of the work, and then still be ready for funding for implementation and for the next in 2026. But I think the sequencing is difficult because the project has to be approved by this body by June of next year. So I do think, as much as they say it's possible, I just don't know how that's feasible to be able to be approved, receive the funding, do the work, and then be ready to be approved for implementation by this body. It's a fair question, and we can ask Christy. We'll talk to Christy and her peers about, yes, you allow it, but how could that even feasibly happen? That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Josefa.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Just had a comment, I guess, in the spirit of creating a space that's open and vulnerable. Cielo came to this because we're not as familiar with these types of public funding programs and collaboratives. And so we come to this as learners. And what I'm learning is this is like the way that Catalyst is rolling out seems to be the reason why HRTC and SURF is created, because it's when you need to hire a consultant to translate an RFP, that's a problem for CBOs and disinvested neighborhoods. Like, what are we doing here? And so I just wanted to be open about that in the case that others maybe not feeling the same way, but we certainly do. That this is interesting. That as we're sort of embarking on this 3-4 year journey, that the first opportunity out the block needs multiple interpretations, potentially consultants. And so just want to name that it's not the easiest thing to navigate, particularly for folks who are new to this type of space. And so kudos to this Orange County region, because as I've been interacting with different folks involved with other SURFs, to your point, Jesse, it seems like OC is far ahead. So even though this group is far ahead, to still feel like I'm very confused on what Catalyst means. It's just I think it's worth underscoring, and just wanted to name that.
Yes, thank you. I mean, you kind of alluded to a comment of why that could be the case. So I don't know if that's why you raised your hand if you had another question.
Jesse, I just want to let Josefa know that he's not alone. We had that conversation before you came on.
Yes.
I don't know if Christy's had a chance to talk previously,
Yeah.
and I can wait till whoever hasn't spoken.
So I think Christy's has just, because Christy is our go-biz rep. I think she's just making herself available to answer anything she does know from some of the questions from this group. If not, we'll have to go to some of her colleagues and peers to get these answered.
Okay. Well, I just had an idea to throw out, if it's helpful, because I think that Josefa's point is extremely well made. I think maybe we need to create a space to have a conversation about not just Catalyst, but about how one might think about strategies and other activities that is not within the confines of planning language, but of just kind of talking about, we all engage in the benefits and the disadvantages of planning. When we're on a road, there's a whole complex planning process about that. So maybe we could create maybe 2 workshops to let people have a conversation, so you can talk about it and then come back and talk about it again. That would be an opportunity to just kind of think through part 1 of the plan, why we're doing that, what we might find in that, what are they seeing themselves, what strategies might be, and then this concept of what is seed money, what is Catalyst, and try to do our best not to have it in application language, but to talk about how it might affect different neighborhoods. And I think that I would certainly volunteer to help with that.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, great comment. I'm going to briefly go through the chat just because I think what we want is, and whether we'll do some form of, we have a voting platform we could utilize well. Again, I think the biggest thing, since I've gotten your feedback and comments, is also, do we want to select the industry sector sooner rather than later? Because then we can maybe even answer some of these questions that are in here, that yes, the industry findings are in the report, the regional plan part 1, but as Tony recommended, we will pull that out when we want to discuss or have the conversation about what industries we want to select. So Melanie, right, they were no industries have been selected, but just a sense of what industries pay, how many they are and whatnot. That's in the regional plan part 1. I know a lot's in there. So again, when we have this conversation, we will pull that out specifically and present that to the group. I think, let me just still go through the chat again. And then Gary, to your question, we'll actually discuss that in another portion of this agenda. We want to have it in early October, but that's again assuming this group likes the kind of game plan to do that. And I think then that's all that have been, and the rest are comments, but I think the rest are answered. So are there any last question or comments? If not, Trista, again, depending on whether there's people who disagree with that, we could see whether people do want to bring this up as early before November, before we submit, or at least between November and May. But any last questions or comments before I hand it over to Trista to see how we want to proceed with about when we want to start selecting industry clusters?
And then I want to add to, I know Jesse OCBC has had California Forward do some economic and community development workshops, and we have some future ones coming as well. So these are excellent topics for us to be able to engage and to be able to break down and subjects as far as workshops around the planning and selection process. So just stay tuned for that. We had one, I think, a few weeks ago, which was really engaging. We had a lot of great feedback and comments and questions that came out of that session. So Jesse and OCBC team will be posting when the next workshops will be. Okay. And Jesse, did you want to move to the next section regarding?
We need to decide if the group wants to start selecting industry clusters sooner rather than later, and when.
Do you want to use your voting motion to vote?
Sure. Well, I think we will need the group to decide on a motion, and then
Jesse,
go ahead. Yes, Anna.
Real quick, somebody in the chat asked to be caught up. It might be helpful to everyone about like what has been done so far to get us close to identifying clusters.
Yeah. So right, we've done the cluster analysis, and Dr. Rod, if you want to maybe elaborate a little bit more here, but in the full report, there's a variety of things we have to do, but one major section is this industry or cluster analysis, again, based on the industries and clusters that that have the most jobs in Orange County, some that have the highest concentration compared to other regions, what some of those wages or pay are, because we want to actually have these be high quality jobs. So we have the research pretty much completed on what we could pick from, but we have not gone to the point of actually selecting what would probably be 3 sectors for us to move forward on. It's just data on kind of the state of the Orange County economy as it relates to kind of industries and jobs. So the whole report that you all approved, I think at the last meeting, is very lengthy. We will, as I mentioned, we will just pull out that section and then represent that to all of you to make the selection on what industries we want to proceed with. Dr. Wright, have anything else you want to add as far as what else is probably in the report as it pertains to industries or jobs or occupations?
No, I think that's right, Jesse. I think we should also take into account the work that the Orange County Center of Excellence at the community colleges did recently in collaboration with SCAG. They did a lot of very good occupation and industry cluster work that I think they'll present at a future meeting. So that'll be a big part of our selection process.
And then we'll make sure that presentation is either preceding the time we make the selection or the meeting right before, assuming we proceed. Yes, Anna. Is there anything else?
Sorry, yeah. I was just thinking it'd be great if there was also a way to add to the representation some of the community feedback, even if we don't have the full outreach and engagement, and hopefully we do, just to see like what is the experience from disinvested communities with regards to those industries, and any suggestions from community members.
We will look to your workshop that you did. If you see in the notes for today's meeting, the other community event that we did, there were some questions where we asked about industries of preference from some of these disinvested community members. But depending on when we actually do the vote, we can go ahead and make sure that as much of the outreach and engagement findings can also be presented alongside it. Because I think all these decisions, and I'll kind of mention this a little bit later, right? There are kind of core sources of information, which is the research that we approved, but absolutely the outreach and engagement that's currently going on, and kind of connecting those two when making these decisions moving forward. So yeah, we'll make sure that as much of that information is presented to the group prior to decisions being made.
Are we looking for a motion? Are we looking for a motion?
Yes, I'll just answer Melanie real quick. No, I think what we're going to do is we're going to have the industries to select from. We'll try to then upvote our way to somehow deciding which those industries are. So I think that the selection of the industries is probably, it's a too important of decision in order to break this group up. And it should be for everyone to kind of cast a vote and decide as far as what industries to proceed with. But yeah, then with that, sorry, Tony.
I would make a motion. I'm sorry, Annette.
I would just, did we decide on the number of industries of focus? I mean, 2, 3.
Oh no, we did not decide the number of industries. That could be part of the process as well. So it's definitely going to be number, and then how many. Usually like this. So the state has gone back and forth. It sounds like they don't want more than 3, but I haven't seen that explicitly in language. But they've said stuff like that verbally. Other regions, they may not use all 3, but if you think about how diverse our region is, I don't see how we wouldn't use the max amount allowed. Again, that's not decided, but I'm just giving you some background.
Thank you.
Well, I would make a motion that we do try to determine our priority industries for the purpose of Catalyst. And I would also add to that the priority industries for Catalyst will not necessarily limit our ability to have priority industries in our regional plan. And I'll explain why that if there's a second to the motion.
I can second. This is Ana Ursula.
So the reason is that for the Catalyst program, you're looking at doing very particular types of work, and you may or may not want to do those in your most dominant sector, because maybe your most dominant sector that you very much want to do and everyone loves it and it's going to be your bread and butter doesn't need the type of work that they're doing in Catalyst. I don't want to presuppose that, but oftentimes your 1 and 2 sector, you actually have players that have already engaged, you've got strategies, and just a little goose and you can kind of make it more whole. So that's why I'm suggesting that we do exactly, we identify for the purpose of catalyst, but not necessarily cut off the decision of what the actual regional plan might say.
And
Yes.
we have, okay, I see that.
I would say, or just like, I mean, if there's anyone, you know, I think just to always keep it simple, unless there's opposition to that, then we can kind of utilize the poll in order to get a full breakdown of how the group feels. But if everyone is comfortable with what was stated, then I guess like I don't think we have to go to kind of utilizing the poll function. So I guess I'm curious if there's anyone maybe oppose what was just said and thinks that we should delay making that decision. If not, we can almost kind of take it as approval through consent. Okay, then hearing now is that motion passes, and we will notify everyone kind of when that meeting will occur, when we can select these industries. So thank you. So Trista, with that, I think we can move on.
Okay, awesome. And so we are going to move on to, I see Brian is in the room. Oh, okay, I think he got moved over. Let me just make sure before we start. I did see, oh, there he is. Okay, hi. All right, so we have the hub site status report, which will be presented by Mr. Brian McNamara. I apologize. A couple months ago, we had Brian from ESIRI give a brief rundown of the data hub that was created for Orange County. And so now he'll give us a refresher on the different data sources on the hub. And then the data hub also is a public website that can be used by all of you and all your organizations for your own research and grant writing. So he's gonna give you a quick update. So I turn it over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Trista. Appreciate it. Let me share my screen real quick. Y'all can tell me if this is coming through. Hopefully somebody's seeing the website.
Yeah, we are.
Perfect. All right. So my name is Brian McNamara. I'm a consultant with ESRI, ESRI. I'm on the data and research team under Dr. Wallace Walrod. I'm here today to provide a quick update on the work that we've been doing on the Open Data Hub, a public website where viewers, public, stakeholders, everybody can interact with data sets that we're using for this project and presentations that have been made as well. All right, so we demoed this a little while ago. It's probably been a couple of months, but want to take a few moments and do a quick overview and highlight some new additions as well. I'll drop the link into the chat here when I'm done, but you should be able to see it on the top of the page as well. All right, so an open data site, what is it? It is just a website where we're able to provide data sets that we're using for analysis and for this project to the public in a transparent way, and also enable others to use them for their own analysis as well. So there's about 3 main sections of this website we'll scroll through real quick and take a look at and help showcase how it can be utilized by each and every one of y'all. All right, so here at the beginning, you'll see 3 quick blurbs about navigating the site. Again, it's meant to be self-explanatory of the website, but we wanted these headers here to help just provide some context. Now it's very interactive, so just click anything and it'll probably open up just like so. And again, as an open data website, we're really focused on the data. You'll see here a link back to the Orange County Business Council SURF project website. We aren't trying to reiterate, the same thing on each site. We really want to stay focused and allow that information to be presented in a clear way. So that's why we have 2 of them, but we also want to link to each other. So you'll find that link right there. I'll keep scrolling down. The first of the 3 main sections is what we call Spotlight Maps and Apps. So these are things that people have previously presented on during these meetings. You'll recognize a few of them. Put them front and center. Now these do change throughout the life cycle of the project. Nothing gets removed, but we do spotlight different things depending upon current goals and objectives. So if you come back to this website in a couple months and you don't see what you're looking for, it could have just been combined with something, or it's in a different category. But we try to keep these the most relevant, right on the top for everybody to see what all I've been working on. So I'll click on one right here. We'll look at pollution, environmental, public health. You can just click on it and you might recognize this from a presentation a few months back. So that's what we're trying to do in this section, is just provide a resource for people to see other existing analysis that other team members have made. I'm not going to click on all of them, but there we try to put them all up here for people to revisit as needed. All right, our second category, browse data by categories. If you took a look at the agenda, there's over 100 data sets on this website, but we don't want anybody to scroll through all 100 of those data sets to find what you're looking for. So we have these 8 key categories, essentially preset Google searches unique to the data we're using, that you can click on to find the most relevant data. So we're going to keep the climate theme going. So if I'll click on the climate environment one, it'll bring me to a preset search for climate and environment. And you can see things related to that category. We'll keep the heat theme going as well, with summer coming hopefully to an end here soon. One data set here is heat health census tracts. That guy over real quick. So you can click on that here, and it's going to allow for a deep dive into census tracts for the entire Orange County area. So you can zoom around. It's very interactive. If you want to go see what census tract information you have, it has some preset pop-ups with the most relevant data front and center. You'll see that down here in the bottom left, which will change as you click on other census tracts. And you can do a deeper dive if you want to keep going. View full details here. You'll see on the left-hand side, or I want to use this. It allows you to use the data in a free and transparent way. Again, providing transparency on when this data was created, updated, and such. We really want to make an effort to provide the most recent data as well. So most of the data is with just a few years old. All right, let's jump back a little bit. All right, I'm not going to click on all of them. But again, if you click on one that you're interested in looking for some additional data, whether it's sustainability, this is a good way to start. If you don't see what you're looking for, there's a search bar here at the top and on the top of the other website, and you can just type in. So if we're looking for, let's say, urban heat islands, okay, there's a couple of those and some related stuff that'll pop up as well. And again, your keyword search could be whatever you're trying to accomplish. So that's a great way to explore the data and see what's available. All right, the last section is additional resources. Here, we're showcasing some existing tools and applications and websites that are useful and used during our research, as well as some websites that have been provided by a number of people on this call, different stakeholders and members. So you might recognize a few of these names here on the bottom: Orange County Healthcare, Orange County Coastkeepers, Estate, Department of Social Services, dashboard visualizations, and some other tools. So we aren't trying to reinvent the wheel. We really want to link to these great resources and make sure everybody was able to use them and was aware of them, most importantly. So we'll click on this one here. There we go. And it's going to bring you to the Orange County Health Info website, where they have additional data sets as well. All right. So those are the main sections of the Orange County Open Data Hub site. It's meant to be a living document. So as we continue down the SURF project and reach different milestones, you're going to see some updates. Now, nothing goes away. We aren't going to delete anything, but it just might not be spotlighted here, down the road. Again, we want to make it the most relevant, but utilizing that search feature, I showcased a couple of minutes ago, or even up here at the top, you can just search data right here as well. You should be able to find whatever you're looking for. So that's all I have for y'all today. Really appreciate the time and excited to continue working on this project.
Thank you. I appreciate this wonderful update on this website. I do see a hand up. We have Apolonio, a member of our community resident. Apolonio, ¿tiene unas palabras que quieres compartir con nosotros? There we go.
Should be ready to see. I mean, I promoted the panel, so you should be able to.
No tengo mucha práctica con la tecnología, pero sí, quería comentar nada más acerca de, cuando estaban hablando acerca de las industrias, pues quisiera también que se tomaran en cuenta las que están digamos que en nuestra comunidad hay mucha gente que es emprendedora y obviamente lo hace de manera clandestina, que muchas veces no se reconoce, pero es visual, se ve en las calles o en las casas muchas veces. Entonces, nada más quería comentar de que cómo podemos ayudar a que estos pequeños, yo digo de alguna forma, gente industriosa que busca la manera pues sí, de superar su situación económica, que haya herramientas accesibles, yo no sé, desafortunadamente, por ejemplo, para desarrollarse bien ahora sí, darle formalidad a estos negocios que de alguna forma ya están funcionando, pero que hay muchos requisitos que no se pueden cumplir o no se saben cómo cumplirlos adecuadamente para darles formalidad. Entonces, pues creo que es importante que se tome en cuenta. Y por otro lado, también el acceso por ejemplo, los pequeños negocios, principalmente en nuestra comunidad latina, no hay mucha facilidad para poder, digamos, de alguna forma crecer por la parte financiera. Los bancos que existen, desafortunadamente, nuestra gente que no tiene sus documentos en regla, pues no tiene mucha facilidad poder acceder a los recursos del banco. Y como consecuencia, los bancos que logran de alguna forma dar acceso a un préstamo, por ejemplo, se lo dan a un alto interés. Entonces, creo que es importante que también se tome en cuenta cómo podemos hacer o crear un banco, yo digo de alguna forma, que sea accesible, ajustar a las necesidades que hay en nuestra comunidad, sin que sea pues demasiado lucrativo, que sea pues, no sé, me atrevo a decir un 2% que se pueda cobrar y que no sea gravoso para nuestra comunidad. Bueno, nada más quiero comentar un poquito, nosotros hemos tratado en el pasado de crear un banco accesible a la comunidad, se llama Tierra y Dignidad. Desafortunadamente, o sea, no pudimos avanzar por muchas restricciones que hay. Pero ¿cómo podemos hacer esto en nuestra comunidad? Creo que es importante para poder ayudar a nuestra gente que digo que no tiene acceso a los recursos por diversas razones. Y también volviendo ahora sí, a los pequeños emprendedores, cómo se crean, yo digo, herramientas que ayuden a desarrollarse y tal vez hacerlo de manera profesional. Tal vez es un poco ambicioso, pero como talleres educativos que puedan ser aplicables a nuestra comunidad. No quiero ahondar más, aprecio el tiempo y la oportunidad. La verdad no tenía acceso, según yo no tenía acceso al audio, pero gracias por escucharme.
No problema. So Apolonio was speaking, and we do have some commentary in the chat from my colleague David. Basically, he was talking about how do we help folks who work in different industries, informal economies, and what tools do they have, and being able to make small businesses more legit and formal, and being able to participating, that the community residents will be able to afford, as most traditional banking opportunities and funding sources are extremely high in their rates, and being able to get that leg up and being able to support themselves and start their small businesses. And so that would be any commentary on that. Any feedback?
Interesting. I would say, I think that catalyst funding, to be honest, makes it difficult. I just kind of want to be candid about that. I think that, you know, there's opportunities on the implementation phase side to do those things, but I think Catalyst was a way for projects that maybe like Apollonia was advocating for to be, I hate to use the word, like, I guess, quote unquote, more like legitimate in order to receive other sources of funding. And in the process, I don't think that, I think that it makes it a little bit harder for something like that to be done via Catalyst. And that's probably more for implementation. But then the irony is, it's like, those are generally the projects that won't be ready for implementation. And so we'll have to think about that as a possibility when we start thinking about the $9 million of the project. So I want to kind of get that back to Apollonia.
Yeah, no, this is an issue of access and making it accessible, and those are equal opportunities for the community.
And Jesse, if I could just build on your point, I wonder though, for Catalyst, because there's a lack of data around the informal economy and these micro enterprises that are work in the shadows for, you know, variety of different reasons, we, not just Orange County, I think statewide, lack deep understanding of the potential of, when shining a light on those shadowed businesses, how that economic impact and ripple can affect, you know, regions. And so what are your thoughts on, although Catalyst isn't a great place for, you know, some of the solution oriented things around what Apollo said, but really about deeply understanding where he's coming from in terms of data to demonstrate the opportunity. Obviously, with Cielo, we exist for that purpose, and we're small, but, you know, trying to grow. But this access to capital and access to technical assistance coaching is critical to help these folks move from the informal economy to the formal economy. And on the capital side, there's this huge wave for the last 10 years of alternative lenders, fintech, that makes access to capital so easy, but puts you into, you know, these debt cycles that could be vicious, because you're stacked, you get into a bad loan and then try to refinance, and then it gets stacked up. And so it makes a challenging situation even more challenging with regards to how predatory some of these lenders could be. So just want to add some context there.
Good point.
Dr. Warad, maybe again about the data, and I know obviously the nature of informal then makes it difficult to track. But what do you think could be then possible recommendations or solutions, even if it's anecdotal, maybe?
Yeah, you know, I think Yusefa, it's a great point. Maybe you and I can work together on that, because you have both your data from your very localized Oakview area, but then also you've done some countywide stuff, and I'm wondering if we could, because you've done so much, you know, good resident outreach around Oakview, that we could take a look at that and then kind of using Jack's 1 square mile model, scale that up to a countywide look. So that might be some interesting to do if you're interested in doing that.
Absolutely, and I would want to also bring in the folks in Santana like Anna and Luis, because I actually met Apollo through their event, and they very much are serving that same population, just in different contexts perhaps. But yeah, I think there's opportunities across this HRTC, Wallace, to sort of look at this more deeply without taking this group's time. But yeah, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
I want to give a moment to Linda DiMario to speak really quickly, and then we'll shift over to, and I got ahead of myself with discussing determining strategies as well.
Thanks, Trista. Yeah, very briefly, it is, I think we can take, not being able to understand completely everything that Apollonio have to say. I'm also thinking they could think of this holistically as part of a continuum, where, if you think of it in terms of early startups, an incubator, an accelerator, and the growth and scaling cycle of businesses, we can think of it the same way. There literally, you could create a platform where people who have those kinds of questions, issues, concerns, or aspirations could find their way to a platform which would help them build a pathway to where they want to go. So I think there's solutions there. It just has to be holistic and integrated.
I agree. There's resources that will be put together, and being able to say, hey, this is the steps, and being able to leverage those steps as well. Okay. So I want to go ahead and kind of a little bit of backtracking and to review and discuss the process to determining strategies. I'm going to hand it over to Jesse to kind of speak a little bit about that. And then that will probably more than likely need to be followed up with a motion and a vote as well.
Yes, thank you. So let me go back to share screen here. So since the group approved the regional plan part 1, the next logical steps, I know it's loading, is to address the regional plan part 2, which is the strategies. I think, and now we're moving towards, I think, being more and more tangible things. So I apologize, I know it's loading. So just from the SFP, this group will have to decide vision and goals, which we will work on in a future meeting and spend time getting everyone's thoughts and feedback on that and agreeing to them. But then the strategies, and the strategies are listed right here, A through F. So we have to address all of these in our report back to the state. You'll see F is in red, aligning with state strategies. This is, in my own opinion, it's probably maybe the least important of all the ones listed. The way it's going to work with the state is we will have our recommended strategies or strategy regarding that, and they will notify us whether that is in alignment or not in alignment. It is not as if the state is going to present us a list to choose from. And because, in my opinion, again, it's the least important. This is why, if I move to the next few slides, why our proposal on how to proceed with how we determine these things is the way it is. But I just want to kind of put that at the forefront. So this is a proposal. This is open. The group has to approve this proposal, or of course, we're looking for modifications. But we will have the researchers on our team develop examples, and it's examples, not recommendations, only because they have been familiar with economic development processes as far as, what does a strategy even look like or sound like in this case? We will present those to the stakeholder groups. As you know, you are all involved in stakeholder groups, which is broader than this group. This is a way that we can have far more breadth and input into this process, similar to the ones that you've participated already, where then the group will brainstorm list of all these different categories or all the different previous categories to present to the HRTC. As Anna mentioned, and again, if we have to try to do portions of this earlier, we will. But by then, actually by the end of this month, all outreach and engagement will be completed from our respective CBOs and other organizations that were participating in this, and we will analyze those results. The questions in that survey are very much directly aligned with disinvested communities' opinions on health equity, on environmental equity, on economic equity. So they will match up pretty well with what we're being asked to do. And then once we have all the information from kind of your colleagues and peers through the stakeholder groups, once we have all the information from the community, and we can reference, of course, Regional Plan Part 1, that we will go through the process of selecting strategies. Our recommendation is like that number, if we can pick that, is 10. I don't think you can do any less. Yet on the other side, if you say that we have 10, 20 strategies, I don't think you have any strategies. There's no way to reasonably move the needle on 20 different things. And also, I think 10 is a way to easily communicate and rally the community around things, right? Like there is somewhat of a marketing component here. I think 10 is a number of people, it'll stick in their minds and they can kind of move and rally around. So that is the proposal, if the group is amenable to how we should try to determine these strategies. And then furthermore, this was already in your timeline, but I'll just cut it out right here. So we want to have those stakeholder convenings early. A part of an early October meeting is to have the conversation on alignment of state strategies. Granted, it's before some of the other information is presented, but that's just because we don't want to have too little time when we talk about strategies. The other strategies that are requested of us. So we wanted to just address that one on the earlier side, because again, I say in my opinion, it's kind of like least important. And so we want to make sure that there is ample time to discuss some of these other things. So just note on 10-6, that's not the only thing we're discussing. It's not the whole meeting, but I just wanted to note that it'll be presented at that time. All of you are aware we're going to have our in-person meeting also. It doesn't really impact the strategies, but it is there. I know that there's been a clamoring to meet in person, and this was just the best time available for our HRTC members of representing Indigenous communities. So we'll have that, and then we'll get into, as I mentioned, the review of the outreach engagement findings, the vision and goals, and then we kind of start just narrowing down our strategies, and then we'll utilize some kind of up voting or down voting to get to kind of the final list. As was true with the Regional Plan Part 1, we didn't want to have a week where there's office hours, again, kind of more input can be provided on what these strategies should be. And then, on 12/8 is when we will approve. So you'll have it in draft form. You'll have however many strategies you want to proceed with in draft form. More input can be provided between then. And then on the 8th, you will see kind of a final document for approval. So that's what we're expecting, kind of the sequencing in order for us to get potentially an unlimited amount of strategies to 10 strategies for us to then submit to the state. This won't be submitted until later on, but at some point we have to then move to projects. So once we have the strategies, the projects have to align to that. We can communicate those strategies to the community as they try to submit proposals for funding when it comes to projects. So with that, kind of, are there any thoughts or comments or questions, or best way to proceed in order for us to determine, I guess, that's which strategies we'll select. And with that, I'll stop share. If I can happily go back. Are people comfortable with that plan? Any recommendations to that plan? Anything I need to clarify?
I see, Linda, you came off of mute. Do you have any feedback or comments that you would like to add?
Oh, I'm sorry, Tristan. No, I meant to hit my video button, but I will tell you this is very aggressive, and I'm very impressed with my colleagues who are leading this. So thank you very much.
We're moving the ball forward. I'm very, very excited because OCBC has worked really, really diligent, and Dr. Walrod and everyone that's been working on this has definitely, and all the stakeholder groups as well, has been moving very swiftly. And I can tell you, sitting in the regional position that California Forward has been observing many different regions, Orange County has definitely moved aggressively in completing all the steps that's needed in getting everything ahead. So kudos to all of you.
Yeah.
And see, they were like for you to show the presentation again.
Absolutely. I just wanted to. don't want you just talking at a PowerPoint slide though. So
Yeah,
I'll
no
leave it.
worries.
So Anna, if you want to come, is there anything that you want to look at? Obviously, again, this is as you know, as dictated by the state, so we have to address these things. Then this is just the overall outline, and then this is I mean, things can be fitted in, but
Yeah,
more or
that's
less how we're going to kind of get there. So yeah, Anna, does anyone want to look at or any kind of questions or recommendations?
This one, just the timeline. I think I wanted to process it. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is also in the timeline that was presented last time, of course, but that was like for the whole execution. So I just pulled out, you know, the relevant months here. Because as you'll see, the logic here is if we can get the strategies done by early December, then we are communicating the strategies. Hopefully the state SFP is out as well. And then, you know, people can start the work of writing for implementation funding, which when it comes down to it is like the most important thing we could be doing. So we wanted to get that out at the beginning of the year for people to have enough time and to work through it. We wanted to give the most amount of time to the project submission and evaluations. So you'll see if we can, we would have, you know, from January all the way through the end of June to work through those things, to give, you know, organizations or people time to submit them, to give us ample time to kind of grade them or modify them in order to strengthen them to receive max amount of funding from the state. So this looks ambitious. I mean, it is, but the more we elongate this, then the less time we have when it comes to this almost the same process when it comes to projects. That doesn't mean it's the right answer, but that's just, I guess, what we thought was best. But this is where, again, we're open to everyone's thoughts and feedback and comments.
Awesome. We have a comment and feedback from Gary. Gary, you're still
Thank you.
There you go.
I mean, this is a very ambitious schedule, and it's obviously what we come up with is extremely important. And I guess I feel a little frustration that we have an HRTC meeting and we're asked to vote on things, and pretty much the decisions are made and so forth. My concern is without delaying this time schedule, maybe getting some subcommittees of HRTC members to you know, be involved in the development of some of these strategies rather than just hear the final motion at an HRTC meeting. You know, I just think it would be a better process to have a little more input from members as you develop these strategies, and more than a question and an answer period at a meeting. And you know, I would, and I'm sure many members would volunteer on some of these to be a small subcommittee to work with the staff and California Forward to develop these and bring them to the HRTC meeting as a subcommittee recommendation rather than staff developing things and bringing it for approval. That's just a comment, and you know, I sense that a lot of us would be willing to put in some extra time to do this. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do that. I'll explain this just a little bit one more time, that that through the stakeholder groups, again, it'll be a full brainstorm session where then the group will decide any and all strategies that they want to send to the HRTC. Right? And then through these meetings, the HRTC will decide the strategies they like. The point is that you will hear from all the different stakeholders, you will hear from the community, you will hear from your stakeholder groups, and of course, you can always reference back to research to decide which strategies that you want to take from that brainstorming session and the stakeholder convenings to what could be, again, if that number is 10, but even then this group can decide how many strategies we ultimately want to come up with. And then we will then, you know, of course, or you will all vote on those strategies to proceed with. We could still utilize some subcommittee. I welcome if you want to have a subcommittee per strategy then. But in this case, again, like there will be brainstorming. So it's a lot different than the research, because I mean, the research, right, is done by researchers. but this is the group, your colleagues in the stakeholder convenings will be the ones, you know, suggesting to the HRTC which strategies to consider. Then, depending on how many those are, the HRTC will have to make decisions on how to cut that down. And that is fully the HRTC's decision, right? Once you guys have some agreement in these kind of the 1027 to 1109 meeting, then it's going to kind of essentially be in draft form before you guys vote for it fully. So never will you be on the spot. Well, here are the strategies, please approve them. This is why we're proposing the plan. The HRTC will decide how to, you guys are the ones deciding how to proceed with this, and then it'll be executed per the HRTC. So this is why this is not me saying this is how it's going to be. This is me proposing a plan for execution. So we are moving through, we are moving through this process, you know, not obviously not quickly, but as well as we possibly can, considering how many decisions and how many significant decisions are being asked of us, right, to move forward. So that, I don't know if that explains it maybe a little bit better, that there is less staff engagement or involvement than a research document, that it is organic, just coming from you. We're just aggregating and then you're going to be sharing out. But if we still want to do the subcommittee, that's totally fine. Then we're open to recommending how many subcommittees, and then we can ask who wants to serve on each subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
So this will require a motion. Is there any opposition on the steps and process for developing the strategies? Does anyone have any comments regarding that? If not, we can maybe put a motion on the table to move that forward. Okay, seeing none, would someone be able to put in a motion?
I'll make the motion. The motion
I
is.
have a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Anna.
I was just wondering, to Gary's suggestion, and thank you for clarifying, Jesse, that was super helpful, to picture how it's going to go through, you know, multiple committees already. But I'm wondering if we could leave open the option of having a subcommittee once all the strategies from all the groups are developed, because it might be so many that, you know, coming to a HRTC meeting and having us figure it out here on the spot could be a challenge. But you know, maybe that's one option, like the invitation to folks here to look at it, you know, ahead of time and in a more of a workshop-based session where we could, you know, have more time to assess and discuss and propose. That's a thought.
Yeah, so I guess a layer, just a layer in between that timeline. So one more layer there. Okay. Yeah, but between the stakeholder convenings and then the HRTC meetings is the recommendation.
Yeah, it could also be after. I mean, if the HRTC wants to look at the whole list, discuss, and then a subcommittee afterwards can be pulled to do more of that work and bring it for a final vote. I think there's different ways.
Thank you, Anna. So I guess we can put a motion to include that layer in between. Any other feedback or comment?
Krista, it's that, Anna, what I'm concerned about is it's when you say after. In other words, we've gone through the arduous exercise of the stakeholder meetings and the brainstorming sessions and that sort of thing, and emerged with. But you're saying then we're going, and forgive this, but I don't know how else to say it. We're going to like second guess it and take it back.
No, yeah, thanks for asking the clarification. I'm saying, I'm understanding that all the groups are going to come up with suggestions, and that when they come to this group, I'm anticipating a scenario where, you know, we have to choose 10, but there are 50. So in this meeting, you know, maybe we take a first go at having a discussion and raising, you know, which of the 10, but if we don't, you know, finish getting to 10 here, maybe a group could take it back to say, okay, let's take all of the discussion that happened with the full HRTC to narrow. So it would be that part of narrowing. But I'm, yeah, definitely just going off of that first suggestion from Gary, and would love to hear thoughts. And we don't have to go this direction. Did that make sense though, Linda? Did I clarify?
I would assume you may have to identify those who will be a part of that subcommittee too. So that would be a factor and component.
Yeah, we would then do that as part of a follow-up to this email for people to volunteer to serve. And then we would have to just ensure that there is equal balance amongst the sectors.
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
So can you repeat the motion then, so the group knows if someone wants to second, and then how to, and then again, we can launch the survey, or unless there isn't any opposition, then we can just, I guess, take it on consent nearly.
Perfect. Linda, would you be able to reiterate the motion for consensus?
Well, I thought I could, but I'm still, so I'm going to defer to someone who maybe has a better understanding of what was just proposed.
No worries.
Okay, so Gary or Anna, do you want to make the motion that explains kind of the sequencing?
I believe, I'm sorry, Jesse, can we bring Tony on?
Yeah, I just did. Sorry,
Okay,
yeah, I
perfect.
jumped off and I didn't recognize you jumped back on.
And Tony, do you have any feedback or anything that you want to add before we put a motion on the table?
You're on mute, Tony.
I apologize. HRTC meets at the same time. I didn't hear the whole conversation. I heard the last part that said after you have an industry list that you want to then go back and allow people to have comments. So maybe someone could explain, or perhaps I'm off. People are shaking their heads. So I don't know what your motion is.
Yeah, Anna, can you go ahead and then make the motion?
Yeah, I can try. For the identification of strategies, the motion is that we go through the stakeholder groups to prepare proposals for strategies that will come to the HRTC. And if needed, a subcommittee can be created that is balanced with stakeholder participation to narrow to the final proposals for the HRTC to approve.
Do we have any opposition of the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a second. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand in the window. All right, so moved. Motion carries. Oh, we have some comment and feedback from Gloria, and then, oh, I saw her hand. Okay.
No, I was voting.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And then OCG, I believe you are voting as well. Perfect. Okay. I know we are running close to time, so we'll move very quickly to these last portions. Jesse,
Yeah, I think we have, because I mean, we are meeting pretty frequently. I think just to not run out of time, we will move these over to the next agenda where I think that meeting will have more slack in it. So I think it's probably best that we adjourn since we're right on the dot, and then all of these items will be carried over to the next one. But again, we're meeting in a couple weeks' time, so it's not like it's going to be a month before these get decided.
perfect. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today and being able to share your feedback, comments, and ideas for today's HRTC meeting. Do we have the date for the next meeting? I know I don't have that handy. I do apologize.
Two weeks from today?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay, perfect. So we'll have the next meeting 2 weeks from today on the 22nd. Thank you again, everyone, for participating.
Thank you all.
And you have a great day. Bye-bye.